You can feel it before you see it, can't you? That specific kind of chill that doesn't just bite at your skin but seeps deep into your bones. It's the damp breath of a creek on the outskirts of Asheville, a place tucked away where the trees grow thick and the sunlight struggles to pierce the canopy. The air is heavy, with the scent of wet earth, of decaying leaves, and something else, something sharp and metallic that you recognize instantly as fear. It hangs in the mist rising from the water, clinging to the moss on the stones. The gurgle of the current isn't a peaceful sound here. It's a hungry murmur, a constant reminder of its cold, indifferent power. Two large shadows stand by the water's edge, their forms indistinct against the gray afternoon sky, their presence a stain on the landscape. They are a silent promise of something terrible about to break the quiet. Your eyes are drawn to what they hold. It's a coarse burlap sack, stained and sagging, held carelessly over the swirling water. A faint, desperate tremor moves through the fabric, a life force struggling against its rough confines. If you listen closely, past the sound of the creek and the rustle of the wind, you can hear it. A series of sharp, pathetic whines, so small they are almost swallowed by the vastness of the woods. These aren't just sounds. They are the heartbeats of 6 tiny bodies, their warmth fading, their world reduced to darkness, and the terrifying sway over a cold grave. The hands that hold them are calloused and large, utterly devoid of gentleness. They are tools of an impending, casual violence, and the final, irreversible motion feels only a breath away, a simple release of tension that will end everything. The men don't speak, they don't need to. Their silence is a language of its own, a shared understanding of the grim task at hand. This isn't an act of rage or passion. It's a chore, a problem being solved with brutal efficiency. To them, the contents of that sack are not lives but a nuisance, a stray problem to be erased from the community's ledger. You can see it in their posture, the relaxed shoulders, the way one of them shifts his weight as if bored. This cold detachment is more terrifying than any shouted threat. It transforms the serene backdrop of the North Carolina woods into a cold, sterile chamber for a quiet execution. The world seems to hold its breath, the indifference of nature mirroring the indifference of these men, and you are left with the chilling certainty that no one is coming to stop this. But then a new sound cuts through the oppressive quiet. It's not the cry of a bird or the snap of a twig. It is a low, guttural growl that seems to vibrate up from the very soil, a sound that comes not from the throat but from the soul. You see her then, emerging from the brush like a ghost. She is all skin and bone, a mixed-breed dog whose body is a roadmap of starvation and hardship, each protruding rib a testament to a forgotten life. Yet her eyes betray none of the weakness her body suggests. They don't reflect fear or desperation. Instead, they hold an ancient fire, a burning, unwavering flame of defiance. She plants her frail feet on the damp ground, a silent, skeletal guardian, standing between an unspeakable act and the only thing she has left in the world. The air thickens, charged with a new and volatile energy. The men turn, their movements slow, their faces showing a flicker of surprise that quickly curdles into annoyance. They see what you see, a creature on the brink of collapse, a stray whose life is worth less than the effort it would take to kick her aside. Still, she does not waver. The fire in her eyes intensifies, a silent challenge that speaks a universal language of protection. The creek continues its relentless murmur, a cold and steady clock ticking down the final seconds. She is hopelessly outmatched, a fragile whisper of life against 2 figures of brute force. Every instinct for self-preservation should be screaming at her to run, to save the one life she can still control. But she doesn't move an inch. She is no longer just an animal. She has become an idea. One of the men lets out a short, humorless laugh, a harsh sound that shatters the tension into 1,000 sharp pieces. He looks at his companion, a smirk twisting his lips, as if this pathetic display is the most amusing thing he's seen all day. The sack dips lower over the water, and a fresh wave of terrified squeals erupts from within, a sound that tears right through you. In response, her growl deepens, a tremor of pure, unadulterated rage shaking her emaciated frame. She takes a single deliberate step forward, her body tensed like a bowstring. She is a shield forged from love and starvation, standing against a tide of human cruelty. The man's smirk fades, replaced by a dark scowl as he takes a heavy, deliberate step toward her. What happens when an unbreakable will meets an unstoppable force? You see her now not just as a stray, but as a being with a name whispered only by the wind: Hope. She is one of the city's ghosts, a fleeting shadow you might catch in the corner of your eye, disappearing down a rain-slicked alley before you can fully register her presence. Her existence is a quiet apology, a life lived in the margins, on the fringes of a world that has deemed her invisible. Her body is a testament to this neglect, a fragile architecture of bone and thin hide, each scar a silent chapter in a long story of hunger and hardship. You can feel the gnawing emptiness in her belly, the persistent ache in her joints, from sleeping on cold concrete. She is the physical embodiment of being forgotten, a survivor in a society that prides itself on moving forward, often by leaving the most vulnerable behind. But deep within a thicket of overgrown bushes, hidden from the indifferent eyes of the world, she has a secret kingdom. It is a small hollow she dug herself, lined with scavenged scraps of cardboard and dry leaves, a tiny bastion of warmth against the encroaching chill. Here, 6 small bodies huddle together, a wriggling, breathing monument to her purpose. This is the only thing she truly owns. You can almost feel the profound comfort she takes in their presence, the soft press of their fur against her own, the milky scent of their breath. They are not just her young, they are the anchor that keeps her tethered to the world, the 6 tiny suns that orbit her desolate life. Her love for them is a physical force, a silent, powerful gravity that holds her universe together, giving her a reason to face each brutal dawn. Every day is a war fought on multiple fronts. You walk with her as she navigates the treacherous landscape of the city, a battlefield of speeding cars, hostile territory claimed by other strays, and the casual cruelty of people who see her as a pestilence. The search for food is a relentless, soul-crushing quest, a desperate hunt for a discarded crust of bread, or the remains of a fast food meal. You see her vulnerability in every hesitant step, in the way she flinches at a sudden noise. Her body is a flickering candle, threatening to be extinguished by the slightest breeze. Yet, her spirit is a forge. You witness the unbreakable virtue in her when she carries a hard-won morsel back to the den, her own hunger a distant second to the needs of her family. She is a shield, a provider, a warrior disguised in a broken body. There is a ghost of a memory that haunts her eyes in the quiet moments, a flicker of a life before this one. You can sense it, can't you? The faint recollection of a soft hand, the echo of a kind voice, the feeling of a warm floor beneath her. She was not always a creature of the streets. She was once part of a world that promised safety, a promise that was broken and left her stranded. That betrayal carved a deep wound in her, a loss that makes her current fight all the more significant. She has already lost one family, one home, one entire universe of belonging. These puppies are not just her future. They are her refusal to let that history repeat itself. They are her chance to reclaim her own story, to build a fortress of loyalty on the ruins of abandonment. To lose them, then, is not just to face grief. It is to face utter annihilation. For you to understand her defiance, you must understand this fundamental truth. The sound of their soft whimpers is the only music that cuts through the static of her lonely existence. The warmth radiating from their small bodies is the only fire that holds back the perpetual winter in her soul. If that burlap sack plunges into the cold, indifferent water of the creek, It will not just be 6 small lives that are extinguished. The fierce, burning light you saw in her eyes, that ancient flame of maternal rage, will be snuffed out forever. Her own heart, having lost its singular reason for beating, would simply cease to function. This is not a choice. It is a battle for the very continuation of her own being. And so you are back at the water's edge, the damp air thick with this newfound understanding. Every ounce of her history, every drop of her love, every fiber of her will is coiled into the tense muscles of her emaciated frame. That low growl rumbling in her chest is the culmination of it all, a vow, a prayer, a declaration of war. You see the man's heavy boot swing through the air, a blunt instrument of casual violence aimed at her fragile ribs. It is an assault not just on her body, but on the very idea that a love so fierce could dare to exist in a world so cruel. The impact is a sickening thud that echoes in the oppressive quiet, and as her body is thrown aside, a question hangs in the air, sharp and cold as the creek itself. Can a spirit forged in fire survive being broken? The delicate, fragile rhythm of her days, a carefully constructed melody of survival, is shattered without warning. You had been with her in the quiet moments just before, feeling the fragile peace of her hidden den, a small pocket of warmth carved out of a cold world. The air inside was thick, with the milky scent of her young, their soft, sleeping breaths, a gentle counterpoint to her own gnawing hunger. This was her sanctuary, a fortress built of leaves and love. But then, a shadow falls across the entrance, a sudden eclipse blocking the pale afternoon light. The sound of heavy, crunching footsteps on dry leaves is an alien intrusion, a percussive beat of doom that announces the end of her world. The men have found her. The fragile glass of her carefully guarded existence cracks, and you know it is about to splinter into a million irreparable pieces. Their actions are brutally efficient, devoid of hesitation or malice. It is the cold, detached precision that makes it so terrifying. They are not monsters driven by rage, but groundskeepers tidying a messy corner of their world. One of them kneels, his large, calloused hand reaching into the sanctuary, not with cruelty, but with an unnerving purposefulness. You hear the puppies, soft whimpers of confusion, twist into sharp, needle-like cries of terror as they are scooped from their warm nest. Their world is abruptly plunged into the suffocating, scratchy darkness of the burlap sack. Hope remains frozen for a heartbeat, a statue of disbelief, as the only warmth in her universe is bundled up and stolen away. The drawstring is pulled tight, a final, suffocating seal on her reason for being. The fragile melody of her life has just been silenced. Every instinct honed by a lifetime of hardship screams at her to flee. You can feel the violent tremor that runs through her body, a seismic shock of pure, unadulterated terror. The ghost of past traumas, of a trust broken long ago, whispers in her ear, urging her to save the only life she has left, her own. Her world narrows to a pinprick of light, the sound of her own frantic heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. For one agonizing second, she is nothing more than a forgotten stray, a creature of fear and flight, paralyzed by the sheer, overwhelming force of human will. The men are already turning away, their grim task nearly complete, and you wonder if this is it, if she will simply dissolve back into the shadows from which she came, forever haunted by the fading cries from that sack. But then, something inside her breaks. It is not her spirit but the chains of fear that have bound her for so long. The flickering ember of defiance you saw in her eyes by the creek now erupts into a roaring, white-hot inferno. It is a primal alchemy, transmuting the leaden weight of terror into the unbreakable steel of maternal rage. The love she holds for those 6 tiny heartbeats becomes a physical force, a tidal wave of purpose that washes away every last vestige of hesitation. She will not run. She will not surrender them to the cold, hungry water. You see the decision solidify in her gaze as she rises to her feet, her emaciated body no longer a symbol of weakness, but a weapon forged in the fires of absolute love. The choice has been made. She doesn't waste a breath on a warning bark or a guttural growl. There is no time for negotiation, no room for anything but action. You watch, breathless, as she launches herself forward, a silent, desperate missile of fur and bone. She is a blur against the muted greens and browns of the forest floor, her movements fueled by an energy she shouldn't possess. Her target is not the man's throat or his hands, but something far more fundamental, his foundation. She throws her entire meager weight against the back of his powerful legs, a kamikaze strike born of utter desperation. It is a collision of worlds, her fragile, love-bound existence crashing headlong into the solid, unthinking wall of his indifference, a silent scream made physical. The impact is a dull, soft thud, a sound almost swallowed by the vastness of the woods. The man stumbles, caught off guard more by the sheer audacity of the act than by its force. He turns, his face a canvas of disbelief that quickly morphs into a dark scowl of annoyance. He looks down at this skeletal creature clinging to his leg, this pathetic ghost who dared to challenge him. In that single, defiant act, she has rewritten the narrative. She is no longer invisible, no longer a nuisance to be swept away. She has drawn a line in the damp earth with her own body, a declaration that her love is a force of nature. As the man's heavy boot begins its upward arc, you realize this is not the end of her stand. It is the first shot in a war she cannot possibly win. The impact sends a shock wave through you, a sickening crunch of bone and cartilage that echoes the snap of a dry twig. You feel the world tilt violently as her small body is hurled through the air, a discarded thing, landing in a heap of dust and damp leaves a few feet away. The air is forced from her lungs in a pained, silent gasp. For a moment, there is only the ringing in your ears and the coppery taste of dirt in your mouth. Through her blurring vision, you see the man standing over her, his form a towering silhouette against the bleak sky. He is a mountain of casual brutality, his face twisted not with rage, but with a profound and chilling annoyance. The other man still holds the sack, its desperate, muffled movements, a constant, agonizing reminder of what is at stake. The first great obstacle has been met, pure, overwhelming force. Can she even find the strength to rise? A tremor runs through her broken frame, a single, violent shudder as she fights to regain control. Every muscle, every nerve, screams in protest, a chorus of agony that you can feel deep in your own bones. But then, you see it again, that impossible fire reigniting in the depths of her eyes, burning away the haze of pain. Slowly, unsteadily, she pushes herself up, her legs trembling like saplings in a storm. The men let out harsh, guttural laughs, the sound scraping against the quiet of the woods. To them, this is nothing more than a pathetic spectacle, a final, foolish twitch before the inevitable. The whimpers from the sack grow louder, sharper, laced with a new urgency that tears at her, a sound that fuels her defiance even as it breaks her heart. She stands, a fragile statue of unbroken will, and you know this is far from over. You become aware of a new presence, a subtle shift in the atmosphere. It's the feeling of being watched. Your gaze is drawn to the houses that border the woods, their windows like vacant, uncaring eyes. But they are not empty. Behind the thin veil of curtains, you can see them, the silent observers. Shadows of faces, indistinct and anonymous, witnessing this quiet atrocity unfold. No one moves. No one speaks. A heavy blanket of indifference settles over the scene, a cold more profound than the creek's icy breath. She is utterly alone, her desperate struggle playing out in a theater of silence. This inaction emboldens the men, their smirks widening as they register the community's tacit permission. Her battle is not just against two aggressors anymore, It is against the terrifying, unbreachable wall of a world that has chosen to look away. The relentless passage of time becomes your most immediate enemy. You can feel it in the weakening struggles from within the burlap sack, the desperate cries becoming softer, more spaced out, a fading rhythm of life. The damp chill of the creek is slowly seeping through the coarse fabric, a creeping, lethal cold that promises a slow, silent end. You can also feel it in her own body, in the ragged, shallow breaths that burn her lungs, in the adrenaline that is beginning to wane, leaving behind a deep, trembling exhaustion. Her life force is a finite resource, a flickering flame being consumed by pain and exertion. Every second she holds them off is a second closer to her own collapse, and a second closer to the puppies succumbing to the cold. The creek continues its hungry murmur, a patient predator that knows it only has to wait. Just as the silence becomes absolute, a sound rips through the air, sharp and brittle as breaking glass. "Leave her alone, you cowards." The voice is thin, reedy, and laced with the tremor of old age, but it carries an undeniable weight of fury. You look up to see a window slide open in one of the houses. An elderly woman, her face a mask of pure, unadulterated indignation, leans out into the cold air. Her words, though simple, shatter the spell of silent complicity. The men freeze, their heads snapping toward the source of the sound, their expressions of smug cruelty momentarily replaced by stunned disbelief. It is not a physical blow, but it lands with the force of one. For the first time, the wall of indifference has been breached, and a single tiny spark of light has pierced the suffocating darkness. Unseen by the men, whose attention is now divided, another act of defiance is taking place. Hidden behind a thick row of overgrown hedges, a different kind of witness is at work. You see it through the leaves, the small, glowing lens of a smartphone, its red recording light a tiny, pulsing beacon of hope. A teenager, their face pale but set with a quiet, fierce determination, is capturing everything. Every kick, every growl, every moment of her impossible courage is being etched into digital memory. This silent act is forging a weapon far more powerful than the men's brute strength. It is a story being given a voice, a truth being prepared for the world. Though she cannot know it, her lonely, desperate stand on the edge of a cold creek may soon have an army of witnesses, but the question still hangs heavy in the air. Will it be in time? That tiny, glowing red light is a secret star being born in the darkness. You feel the teenager's heart hammering against their ribs, a frantic drumbeat of fear and adrenaline, yet their hands remain impossibly steady. This act is its own form of courage, a quiet rebellion waged from the shadows. The phone becomes more than a device. It is a conduit, a sacred vessel capturing not just images, but the very essence of her unbreakable will. Each frame preserves her defiance, etching her story into a permanent digital record. The upload begins, a silent prayer sent out into the vast, indifferent ocean of the Internet. It's a message in a bottle, a single spark of truth cast into an endless night, and you hold your breath, wondering if anyone, anywhere, will even see it before it's too late. The journey begins with a single view, a solitary drop in a digital monsoon. Then, a share, another. The invisible currents of the network, guided by some unseen algorithmic ghost, detect something potent in the shaky footage. It recognizes the raw, unfiltered power of her story. The video begins to spread, a digital wildfire, leaping from a local community page to the broader feeds of Asheville. It's no longer just a recording. It has become a living narrative. You watch as strangers pause their scrolling, their thumbs frozen over the image of the skeletal mother standing her ground. They feel the vibration of her growl in their own chests, a primal frequency that resonates deep within. The video is a mirror, and in her eyes, they see a reflection of a love so fierce it demands a response. The reaction is immediate and overwhelming. Across the city, phones buzz and chime with notifications, each one a small alarm bell of conscience. The silent witnesses from the neighborhood windows are silent no more. Their keyboards click as they add their voices to the rising chorus of outrage. The video's hastily typed title, "Dog Fights Men to Save Her Puppies," becomes a rallying cry, a banner under which a digital army begins to form. Her lonely struggle, once confined to a forgotten patch of woods, is now exploding across thousands of screens, replayed in quiet offices and on crowded buses. Her virtue, that pure and defiant love, proves to be a powerful contagion, infecting strangers with a sudden and profound sense of shared responsibility. The wall of indifference has not just been breached, it is crumbling. This digital outcry quickly transforms into tangible, real-world action. The phones once used for passive viewing are now instruments of intervention. You can hear the frantic ringing at the local animal shelter as its switchboard lights up like a constellation, each call a voice trembling with anger and concern. The police department's non-emergency line is flooded with reports, callers describing the creek, the woods, the men, the burlap sack. Hope's solitary stand has activated a city. She is no longer just a stray. She has become a symbol, a focal point for the community's conscience. The help that seemed so impossible just moments ago is no longer a distant dream. It is a promise, a gathering force that is already on its way, a wave of compassion rushing to meet a tide of cruelty. You can almost feel the rumble of engines starting, the screech of tires on pavement. This is not an organized, official response, not yet. It is a spontaneous convergence of individual souls moved to act. A volunteer from the local rescue grabs a crate and a pile of warm blankets, her car peeling out of the parking lot with a sense of urgent purpose. An animal control officer, seeing the video shared by a friend, bypasses protocol and heads directly for the woods, his jaw set with grim determination. A few ordinary citizens, unable to simply sit by and watch the story unfold on their screens, get into their own cars. They are driven by a primal need to bear witness, to offer aid, to simply add their presence to the side of justice. What was once a lonely battlefield is about to become a sanctuary. Back at the creek's edge, the men remain completely oblivious to the digital storm they have unleashed. Their world is small, confined to the damp earth and the stubborn, bleeding animal who refuses to yield. One of them, his patience finally shredded, raises a heavy boot, ready to deliver a final, crushing blow that will end this pathetic resistance for good. The sack over the water is terrifyingly still now. But just as his foot begins its downward arc, the first siren cuts through the air, a high, piercing wail that slices through the murmur of the creek and the rustle of the leaves. The man freezes mid-motion, his head snapping up, his face a mask of pure, stunned confusion. A world he never knew existed is about to crash down upon him. The siren grows from a distant mosquito whine into a piercing physical scream that tears through the fabric of the woods. You feel it in your teeth, a vibration that signals the end of this isolated world. The men's faces, once masks of casual cruelty, now shatter into mosaics of raw panic. Their eyes dart toward the road, then back at the bleeding, defiant dog, their small universe of power collapsing around them. The heavy boot that was poised to strike is forgotten. In a clumsy, graceless motion, they drop the burlap sack onto the damp earth. It lands with a soft, sickening thud. They turn and run, crashing through the underbrush like frightened deer, their large shadows swallowed by the forest they had so recently commanded. Their departure leaves behind a silence more profound than any sound, a vacuum where only the murmur of the creek and the frantic pounding of your own heart remains. You are left alone with her in this sudden, echoing quiet. The adrenaline that fueled her impossible stand drains away, leaving behind a deep, trembling exhaustion that you can feel in your own limbs. Her body, a fragile collection of broken parts, sways on its feet. Each breath is a ragged, painful effort, a small victory against the crushing weight of her injuries. But her gaze is not on the woods where the men disappeared, nor is it on the approaching sounds of help. It is fixed, with a singular, unwavering intensity, on the stained burlap sack lying so terrifyingly still on the ground. She takes one slow, agonizing step, then another, dragging her broken body across the cold earth toward the only thing that matters. The silence from within the sack is a new kind of enemy, a cold dread that seeps into your bones. The first figures to emerge from the trees are not threats, but saviors. They move slowly, their voices low and gentle, words of comfort floating on the cold air like soft feathers. You see them through her eyes, large shapes, human forms that her every instinct screams to mistrust. A low growl rumbles in her chest, the last ember of her warrior's fire, a reflexive warning from a spirit that has known nothing but betrayal. A woman in a Rescue League jacket kneels, her hands open and empty, her face a portrait of profound empathy. She does not move closer. She simply waits, offering a silence that respects the sacred, violent space hope has defended. This is the new standoff, not one of force against will, but of compassion against a universe of pain, a silent negotiation for her trust. With infinite care, another rescuer reaches for the sack, his movements slow and deliberate. Your breath catches in your throat as his fingers fumble with the knotted twine. The coarse fabric is pulled back, revealing a squirming, shivering pile of life. They are alive. You feel a wave of relief so powerful it almost brings you to your knees. Hope pushes forward, her body trembling violently, and nudges the pile with her nose. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A frantic, desperate inventory of her entire world. A series of weak, pathetic whimpers rises from the pile. But now, the sound is not one of terror, but of recognition. It is the most beautiful music you have ever heard, a fragile symphony of survival that washes over the grim clearing and begins to heal the very air around you. The kneeling woman slowly extends a hand, not toward the puppies, but toward her. Draped over her arm is a thick woolen blanket, a promise of impossible warmth. As she gently lays it over Hope's battered back, you feel the coarse texture give way to a profound softness. The sudden weight is a comfort, an anchor in the dizzying aftermath of the fight. And for the first time, she does not flinch. She does not pull away. You watch the fire in her eyes, that ancient flame of defiance, soften and melt into a deep, liquid pool of soul-shaking relief. Her tense muscles finally surrender, her body leaning into the impossible gift of warmth and safety. The chains of a lifetime of fear and vigilance begin to rust and fall away, one by one in the quiet of the woods. Just then, a single ray of afternoon sun breaks through the dense canopy, a golden spotlight that illuminates the scene as if directed by some higher power. It bathes her and her 6 tiny, shivering children in a warm, ethereal glow, transforming the damp ground into a sacred space. She begins to lick them, her movements rhythmic and sure, cleaning them not just of the dirt from the sack, but of the trauma of the day. You feel the tears finally break free, a hot, silent stream down your face, as you witness this profound act of peace. The warrior has laid down her arms. The lioness is finally home with her pride. Her physical battle is over, her family is safe, but as she closes her eyes in the golden light, you are left to wonder if a spirit so profoundly broken could ever truly learn to trust again. You do not see her by the creek again. The ghost of the alleys has vanished, her shadow no longer a fleeting stain on the cold concrete of the city. Instead, you find her weeks later, bathed in the soft, warm light of a sunbeam pouring through a clean window. The air here doesn't smell of damp earth and fear. It smells of clean laundry and cedar, the faint, comforting aroma of a home. She lies on a soft, plush bed, a luxury her tired bones have never known. Her coat, once a matted testament to hardship, is now thick and glossy, a river of dark fur that rises and falls with each peaceful breath. The map of scars on her body is still there, but the lines have softened, becoming not a sign of current suffering, but a testament to a war she has already won. The most profound transformation, however, is not one you can see on her skin. It is something you witness in her gaze, a deep and quiet change in the very geography of her soul. You watch as a hand, large and gentle, reaches down to stroke the top of her head. There is no flinch, no recoiling into the shadows of past trauma. Instead, she leans into the touch, her eyes closing in a moment of pure, unadulterated trust. The ancient fire of defiance you saw at the creek, that feral flame forged in desperation, has not been extinguished. It has simply been banked, its raw energy transmuted into a steady, warm glow of contentment. She has learned the most difficult lesson of all, that not all hands are weapons, and that some promises, after all, are not meant to be broken. Around her, a clumsy, joyful chaos unfolds. Her puppies, no longer a shivering pile of fear, are a tumbling, wriggling embodiment of life itself. They are healthy and round, their tiny barks echoing on the polished wooden floors as they chase a brightly colored ball. They are utterly unaware of the cold, dark fate they so narrowly escaped, their world defined only by the warmth of the sun and the boundless patience of their mother. You watch her as she watches them, a silent, regal queen observing her court. Her love is no longer the sharp, desperate shield it once was. It is now a vast and peaceful ocean, a deep current of security that fills the room, a silent promise to them that the world can, in fact, be a safe and beautiful place. It is a peace she has earned for them with her own blood. Her story did not end when the sirens faded. In fact, that was only the beginning. Her face, captured in that single golden sunbeam by the creek, became an icon across Asheville. You see it on posters in coffee shops and on the sides of city buses, under a title she never knew she earned, The Lioness of Asheville. Her impossible courage became the catalyst for the city's most successful adoption campaign in history. You walk through the local animal shelter and see what was once a cacophony of lonely cries now replaced by a strange and beautiful quiet. Kennel after kennel sits empty, their former occupants now in warm homes of their own. Her stand did not just save her own 6 children. Her fierce love became a lifeboat for hundreds of other forgotten souls. The ripples of her defiance reached even further, washing over the cold stone steps of City Hall. The video, now with millions of views, was played before the city council, her low growl echoing in the silent August chamber. The teenager who filmed it, the elderly woman who shouted from her window, and dozens of other citizens gave passionate testimony. Her story gave a face to a problem that had long been invisible. You witness the moment a new, stricter city ordinance against animal cruelty is passed unanimously, named in her honor. She became more than a survivor. She became a legislator, her courage carved into the very laws of the city, a permanent shield for those who cannot speak for themselves. The indifference that once almost cost her everything had been shattered by the sheer force of her will. And so you see her now not as a victim, but as a quiet legend. The video of her stand remains a permanent fixture of the internet, a digital monument to a love that refused to break. Her legacy is a powerful reminder that the most profound acts of heroism are often born not of strength, but of a fierce, unwavering loyalty that simply will not surrender. It is a testament to the idea that compassion is not a weakness, but a primal instinct that, once awakened in a community, has the power to reshape the world. As you watch her doze peacefully in the afternoon sun, her children safe beside her, you understand that her war is finally over. But her story leaves you with one final, lingering question. Will we learn to see the lioness in every forgotten soul before their battle begins? When you look at her now, resting in that sliver of sunlight, it's hard to reconcile this image with the ghost you first met by the creek. The memory of that desperate skeletal warrior, a creature forged in the crucible of starvation and fear, feels like a lifetime ago. You can still feel the damp chill of that place, hear the hungry murmur of the water, and see the defiant fire burning in her eyes. That fire hasn't gone out. It has simply transformed. The wild, desperate flame of a cornered animal has settled into the deep, steady warmth of a hearth, a quiet glow of peace and belonging that radiates from her very being. She is a living testament to the idea that the deepest wounds are not the end of the story, but the beginning of a strength we never knew we possessed. Her journey forces you to confront a profound and uncomfortable truth about the world we have built. How many other heroes are fighting their own silent wars in the forgotten corners of our cities? How many acts of impossible courage go completely unseen, their stories dissolving into the indifferent air? She was never just a stray. She was a lioness waiting for her moment, a queen whose love was a kingdom of its own. Her story is a powerful indictment of our own blindness, a challenge to the casual apathy that allows such cruelty to fester in the shadows. She reminds you that every forgotten soul has a name, a history, and a capacity for a love so fierce it could move mountains, if only we would take a moment to truly see them. You saw how the entire narrative of that bleak afternoon pivoted on two small acts of defiance, a voice from a window and a light from a phone. It wasn't an army that saved her, but the simple, profound refusal of two individuals to remain silent witnesses. This is the universal lesson etched into the heart of her story. Indifference is the true antagonist, a cold, heavy blanket that smothers compassion. But it is also incredibly fragile. It can be shattered by a single word, a single share, a single person, choosing to step outside the comfortable silence of non-involvement. Her rescue wasn't a miracle. It was a chain reaction of empathy, proving that the wall of apathy that separates us is not as strong as we have been led to believe. And so, her story becomes a mirror, reflecting a question directly back at you. You have walked with her through the darkest moments of her life, felt the sickening impact of the blow, and shared in the profound relief of her salvation. But her fight is not an isolated event. It is a parable that plays out in countless forms, all around us, every single day. You are constantly standing on the banks of your own creek, witnessing struggles both large and small. Her journey asks you to decide what kind of witness you will be. Will you be one of the silent faces in the window, or will you be the one who finally breaks the silence, knowing your voice may be the only one they have? The legacy she leaves behind is far greater than the empty kennels at the local shelter, or the new lines of text in a city ordinance. Her true legacy is the awakening she sparked in the heart of a community, the reminder that our own humanity is intrinsically linked to how we treat the most vulnerable among us. She proved that compassion is not a passive emotion, but an active, powerful force capable of rewriting endings and reshaping the world. Her low, desperate growl, once a lonely sound of defiance, was amplified by thousands of voices until it became a roar for justice that could no longer be ignored. This is the enduring power of her stand. It reminds us that we are all amplifiers. So as you leave her here, resting peacefully with her children, you understand that her story doesn't truly end. It is passed on to you now, a flickering torch of responsibility. The world is full of forgotten souls, each with their own battles, each with their own capacity for a love as fierce as hers. Her story is not just a tale of survival, it is an invitation. It is a call to look for the lions and lionesses hidden in the shadows of your own world, to offer them not pity, but solidarity. Her courage lit a fire. Now the question that hangs in the quiet air is not what she will do next, but what you will choose to do with the spark she has given you.